Hi guys, welcome back to Two Worlds Collide podcast. On today's episode, things are a little bit different. Recently I travelled to the Gold Coast and jumped on Brodie Buchal's podcast. We discussed a whole range of topics and he has allowed me to relaunch the podcast on my podcast. I put his YouTube and Spotify links in the bio, so if you enjoy this conversation and you like his stuff, make sure you head over and give him a like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoy.
Hey, if you have just arrived to watch this conversation, you are in for a treat. I sit down and we discuss all things Australia and beyond, touch on a few little conspiracies, what makes him who he is. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Sam Bamford. Enjoy. Sam Bamford, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brodie. Really appreciate it. Mate, you contacted me a couple months ago and I do love travelling up to the Gold Coast and we do it a fair bit, and I was looking forward to coming onto this podcast because I do watch your stuff as well, and I have a large amount of respect for people like you and I, because I know what happens when you put yourself out there like that. So people can, obviously a lot of people can come after you, stuff like that as well. So, mate, straight back at you. Thank you for your service as well, and thank you for what you're doing.
For the watcher at home, man, very simple question to kick it off. Who is Sam Bamford?
Like, who is Sam Bamford? I don't know. Maybe the public perception is a lot different to the private. Who is Sam Bamford? If you could probably ask my wife, she would have the best explanation of that. But to me, mate, I'm just a father, someone that puts out my thoughts on social media, and someone that is seeing the destruction of their country on every single aspect, from money to the attack of men to the housing crisis. And just someone that wants to see normality and bring back common sense into Australia. So, mate, someone that loves his country, a loving father, ex-veteran, and hopefully, of my wife would say, a very good husband. So,
how long have you been now doing the Instagram, the podcasting? How long have you been doing it for?
The podcast started about 18 months ago, and I lent away from political stuff. I was a little worried about talking out politically. Okay. So I just had a whole bunch of mates on who were ex-AFL players, got into having military mates on, and my profile on Instagram probably grew to about 10,000 followers in a year. Then I started talking political stuff, and I've got like 250,000 followers in under 6 months. But, that just shows where Australia is at the moment. Yeah. For people like me and Big Chocky to grow so quickly, that just shows we're in a dire state, and not many people like us have spoken up before. And, do you know Senator Alex Antic?
Of course.
Yeah, so he did a really good speech at the CPAP convention maybe a month or two ago, and he says the right self-censor themselves. Yeah. Because of they don't want to be labelled as a racist, a bigot, a white supremacist, a Nazi, everything that comes at me daily. Yeah. And they're afraid of that. And I just, if we continually go down this path of being called these things and being worried about being called these things, and we're going to get nowhere as a country. So we really need to, like, as a population that wants to save Australia, everyone needs to start putting in their hard work. And look, it's not easy, trust me. I put up a photo last night of, me and my family. I had to blur out my kid's face, and that's just for safety and security reasons and stuff like that. So,
I asked Senator Malcolm Roberts the question. This was pre-election, talking about Dutton and Albanese and the state of Australia. And I sort of asked him the question, I love a good conspiracy, but by the track record, they're not really conspiracies. Most of them have been coming true, or at least they're on the horizon of being proven right. But I kind of asked him, are these guys leading our country, like, are they bought, compromised, or just incompetent?
All of the above. It's
all of the above, right? It's a bit of everything. And I always wonder, man, like, how are these guys making, because what you're known for is common sense politics, right? It's kind of like, hey, this is what's happening, this is what I see. And there's a reason 250,000 people, plus what you're getting on Spotify, plus your YouTube, your viewership is actually incredibly high to the, like, comparing it to, say, Joe Rogan in America. They have a massive population, but it's actually comparative to how many people we have here. So your influence is actually through the roof right now, and you're just talking common sense. What is it that you believe? The more you do this, the more you dig into it. I've been watching your posts get increasingly more, definitely well prepared, really educated on what you're putting out there, but they're getting into some areas where people are like, oh, wow. And that's probably why you're feeling the heat. Obviously, they often say if you're not having a head-on with the devil, you go in the same direction of him. You're having quite a few head-ons now. Where are you landing? Do you think there's a really deep agenda, or do you think it's mainly incompetence?
Yeah, you have to be careful what you say these days, especially someone that's on my level. What I can tell you, because I'll just say I don't want to get kirked.
Of course.
You know, like that's probably one of the biggest things, because we know that foreign influence, doesn't matter who it is, you know, they're not going to come out and do it, right? Like they're not going to get a foreign agent to do it. They're going to pay someone to come in and do something like that.
Do you feel that real threat now? Have you noticed? You do?
Yep. There's billions of dollars at stake here, trillions of dollars at stake. So
depending on what you're putting out, depending on what story you're highlighting.
Yeah. So like I'm going to put out a reel tomorrow that talks about our debt, right? And the reason Australia was sold this multicultural and diversity is our strength slogans is because our government is in increasing debt every single year. We don't pay off that debt. We only pay off the interests. And to service that debt, increasing debt, we need more people in the country.
Yeah.
So it's not about multiculturalism is a good thing or diversity is our strength. No, it's the government has been fucking lying to us for decades.
Yeah.
Decades. And they sell us slogans like multiculturalism is good and diversity is our strength to only service their debt to flood in half the planet into Australia. Yeah. And when you start to talk up against these things, like who are the people behind the doors pulling the strings? Who is gaining mass amounts of money from the people coming into the country? Who buys our debt?
Yeah.
Who services our debt? And when you start to look at a lot like that, and you're like, wow, this is just you know, because the deeper I go into this stuff, the more nervous I get. I started off with just calling out
local politicians.
That's it. And like, I did a reel about the coal and gas industry, and that went nuts. And then I'm starting to get into more stuff now, like who controls the debt, who owns the debt, why are we being flooded with so many people into the country? If the Liberal Party get in, are they going to be any different? No. Like, and when you start to get into, and then you start to talk about BlackRock, then you start to talk about lobbying, foreign lobbying.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous one. And then you start to talk about business influence, billionaires.
Yeah.
I've called out Mike Cannon-Brookes a bunch of times for coordinating the green energy scam.
Yeah.
Like Climate 200, they fund the Till Chicks. They gave them like $12 million at the last election. All this stuff, right? And when you realize as well that our politicians, they don't work for us.
Not at all.
Like not even a small bit. Like then you start to talk about backroom deals with lobbyists, brown paper bags, offshore bank accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, if you start to call out this stuff, how far is a politician going to go to make sure their way of life is kept safe and mine isn't?
So where you land is you actually feel that the threat is real because there's a lot at stake for these guys.
100%.
Yeah.
Elon Musk came out the other day and was on the Joe Rogan podcast and spoke about it. And Joe Rogan said, you know, is it just the insider trading? And Elon Musk goes, it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you because I don't want to get killed.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say, just like I've said, these people have got lives. They've got children. Their children have children. And if you expose them, their whole system comes crashing down. And how far are they going to go to save what they have? Like, I did a reel yesterday where I called out, what was it? Oh, the bomb website, $96 million.
Anyone's a business owner knows how much it costs to make a website.
Yeah. I had a lot of comments in there saying that someone could have paid me $500 and I would have done an AI edit on this and had it done within 3 hours and I could have passed it back and it would have worked. Give
some context to those watching who might not have seen it. How much was the original budget for the website?
$4 million.
Which is $4 million for a website. Elon Musk wouldn't have a website. Of everything he does, that would cost probably over okay, look, context. We made a royalty-free music platform as a tech business here. Something I did a couple of years ago. You would know, making reels and stuff, when you grab music, you need to use royalty-free music, right?
Yeah.
Our website costs $180,000, something like that. That's an extremely, like, it's doing a lot more than what the weather data is bringing in, right? Way more. Cost us just under $200,000 a few years ago. A $2 to $4 million budget just for a weather website, and then they end up spending how much?
$96 million.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't even work 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Albanese comes out a couple months ago, wants to pin down freedom of information laws, so we can't even work out why it went from 4 million to 96 million. And like, you think to yourself, are we getting into a form of government now where it's like full authoritarianism?
Yeah.
And like, we can't ask questions anymore. And if we do ask questions, they just label us as a conspiracy theorist, as a talk up against immigration. You're a white supremacist.
Oh, straight away.
And so look, these are the things. And yeah, look, I do get nervous sometimes. I've done full security threats for my home, being ex-military. I understand that I can't post where I am. I can't. My wife isn't allowed to have social media accounts anymore. I can't put up photos of my family unless they're blurred out. Pattern of movement is a big one.
Yeah.
Being ex-military, for example, like, I go to the gym. People know that I go to that gym. They take a photo of me. Sam goes to this gym. Someone just sits outside that gym for a week. They find out where I live because they followed me home.
Yeah.
And then they sit outside my home and say, okay, Sam goes to the gym between this and this time every day. His family's at home by themselves. That's when we go. So you got to be really, really careful with stuff like that. Hence why I don't really go to public gyms anymore and stuff. Now, look, I might be going to the extreme length of this sort of stuff, but if you've received some of the messages that I've received, like, the safety is the number one priority for me and my family. The good thing is, around where I am in Adelaide, I have multiple mates that are ex-military guys.
Yeah.
I have multiple mates that are still in the police force. And I have a whole bunch of really close mates that are really close by. And they all know what's happening. I've worded them all up. So, look, I am very, very safe with me and my family, and it's highly unlikely something will happen, but it's 0.001%.
Still to be prepared, right?
But then you start to think about foreign influence is the big one. You start to talk up against foreign influence. They have certain lobbying groups here. If you because I can practically turn the Australian public onto a subject now.
Yeah.
If I go and talk about it, everyone's like, yeah, Sam's right. He hasn't spoken about that before. So, yeah, look, mate, there's just heaps of stuff that personally now I do a lot different in my life. But like I said, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for a thing, because I think to myself, where would Australia be?
Yep.
What Australia is our kids going to grow up in if we don't do something now about it? So, and there's a few things that I want to do. I want to go do a speaking tour next year about, like, what is Australia? Where are we headed? How can we fix this mess? Because the unfortunate thing is, I have people message me every single day saying, what can we do? Email me, what can we do? Well,
What can we actually do?
unfortunately, like, we can't do anything until 2028. Labor hold the majority government.
Yeah.
The Liberals are dead.
Yeah.
And the new right is forming in a certain way now that people are getting a lot of backing in certain political parties. But whilst that happens, you just know that Labor can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
There's no pushback. So we're in a very deep, dark hole. And, we just got to keep talking up. We got to keep peacefully doing stuff because a lot of people want violence as well. They do. A lot of people are sick of this. A lot of people are fed up. And, this is how basic levels of revolution start, to be honest.
Did you think this would be your path, or did you have a moment when all of a sudden, say when you had like 10,000 followers, was there a really quick spike? I remember the reel you put up with the Will Farrell, like, wow, that got out of hand. When you got to 100,000, I remember you did that one.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you kind of thought, wow, I'm in this now?
Yeah, I put up a reel of how our government lied about the marches over in the UK with Tommy Robinson, how they said it was 110,000 or something, and it was 3 to 4 million. I woke up one day and I had 10,000 followers overnight because it went nuts in the UK, but it went nuts in Australia the next day as well. And, that was probably the real moment. But to be honest, mate, like, I try and live my life completely offline. So a lot of people think that someone like myself lives online a lot. I live offline. Like my reels take half an hour to make in the morning. Like this morning I did a reel, it took me 5 minutes.
Yep.
And once I do that reel, my phone is down and I'm just hanging out with my daughter and my family.
It's good discipline.
Yeah. So sometimes I get way too sucked in to it. My wife has to remind me every few weeks to be like, okay, Sam, you need to pull this back now. But being present for a child, especially in today's society where everyone's glued to their phones, like I have to be a role model for her and I have to show her that daddy's not he doesn't live on the internet. Like he may be on the internet, but in his day-to-day life, he's dad and that's all he is to me. So I don't really like to, excuse me, I don't really like to stay online too much at all. A lot of people think that I do, but man, put my phone down. And then when my family goes to bed at about 8 o'clock at night, I'll start to do research for about an hour before I go to bed.
Yep.
What am I going to talk about the next day? If I don't get anything and there's nothing, I'll wake up early the next morning. What am I going to research? What am I going to look at? And then I'll quickly bang a reel out. Sometimes you are researching for hours, but once that reel's done, mate, it's just time off, time down, get away from the world because it can be very toxic and a lot of my content can be very triggering.
Yeah, of course.
Very triggering. So I've tried to water it down a little bit, but there's sometimes where emotion gets caught up with me as well and I start yelling at the camera.
Yeah, you're into it.
Yeah, because I'm just freestyling because I'm angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people, they just got to find your news source, find your credible news source that you like, watch them for the day, put your phone down, give back to your health, your family, your wellness, and that's pretty much what I try and do. But there's going to be something bigger on the end of this, right? Like a lot of people are talking, we're doing a lot of stuff, but there's got to be something in 2028. Like we have to push towards something in 2028. I don't know what that looks like for me personally. I've always said I don't want to get into politics. But who knows? Who knows what next week holds? Yeah. Let alone 2028 holds. And like, will our corrupted political class keep getting worse? Yeah, because they keep printing more debt. Yeah. And to service that debt, we need to flood more people into the country. Yeah. And like when you realize that 99% of our problems come from a cost of government crisis, not a cost of living crisis, then you think to yourself, well, if we just fix the money flow and like any good business or any good family, pay off the actual home loan or pay off the business debt, not just keep paying the interest and let that debt get larger and larger. When you realize that and when you realize that 99% of the problems in this country, maybe 95, a bit too over-eager there, but a lot of those a lot of those problems come from this massive amount of debt that we've got. Like, and then if you go back to the spiral of debt, where did this all start? Like the British pound back in the 1600s, they changed the whole system up. Every single time a war has happened, they've transferred wealth from one region to another.
Of course.
And it's like
every country wants to use their own currency.
Yeah. And then you sort of get into that stuff. Yeah.
Take me back to when you were, what's a 8, 9, 10-year-old Sam Banford, where you're growing up? What's your upbringing like? Your parents? What's your mum and dad both in the picture? What's it like as a 10-year-old Sam Banford?
Yeah, I had a fantastic life growing up. My parents bent over backwards to give the best life for me and my brother. I have one brother, so family of 4.
Older, younger brother?
Older brother.
Okay.
I'm very competitive with him. He's always had the upper edge on me because he's older. Really, really good footy player. Mm-hmm. But me and my brother, because my dad was very good playing footy AFL, we were nutcase footy players when we were younger. Okay. So, mate, but my mum, she worked in a doctor's clinic just as a receptionist. My dad was a brickies labourer. He used to slave away for 12 hours a day in Adelaide. And they sent us, and we grew up in the northeastern suburbs, so probably a bit lower socioeconomic upbringing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to say that like we were poor or anything. Yep. We were just like, we got by. But they bent over backwards to send me to a good school in Adelaide, which was called Rostrevor College, a massive footy school. Okay. So I went to school with a lot of rich kids. Right. And like their families were just fantastic. They used to pay for me to go to holidays with them up in Hamilton Island and that. So because my parents couldn't really afford the the plane tickets to get me up there and stuff. So, mate, I had a fantastic upbringing, a very like humble upbringing. I think, you know, I never really got given anything when we were younger. We had to work hard for everything. My brother's now a school teacher, and yeah, my parents are both living very happily and love being grandparents. But mate, I was just a like a little rat bag growing up, as most kids are. I loved his footy, loved the outdoors. We used to play cricket for like 12 hours a day in the summer, and yeah, heavily influenced by sport when I was growing up. And yeah, my parents are just your average Aussies.
Has your influence and growth online and I guess persona affected your brother's teaching, affected the staff around him?
Yeah.
Teachers are, I think, not, I can't remember the stats in Australia, but one of the videos I did recently, say in America, especially in colleges, like 97% of teachers donate or affiliated with the Democrats. In Australia, similar numbers, but these are the people who are raising our kids. But I take it your brother's probably very similar to you. Not always the case. My family are not the same as me.
Yeah.
But is your brother got similar views?
Nah, not really. No.
Okay.
So he would probably be a bit more left leaning.
Right.
I don't even know who he voted for. We don't have these conversations.
Right. You protect the blood by not.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Like,
yeah.
You know, we have dinner once every fortnight. All the families come around, and there's just too many kids running around to be talking about that.
Did your family watch your reels?
Nah, so I've blocked all my family members, and the reason I blocked them is because people can go back to them and find where they're linked at, and you know, like my mum get death threats and shit like that. So no, I don't. So they've blocked it all. So none of them actually know what I talk about. My mum is very interested though, very interested. She'll come talk politics with me for hours about stuff. My brother, not too much because we tend to disagree a bit.
Yeah.
So we just don't have them conversations anymore.
Yeah.
But it's funny because he does go to work and someone's like, "I watched your brother's reel last night," and he's like, "I don't see it anymore. I can't see it," because he actually blocks me for safety reasons. But yeah, you know, like I don't think he cops much flack, mate. Like I said, because he's in that same area that we grew up in.
Right.
So a lot of those people would be your righter leaning.
Yeah, okay.
People anyway, especially from that area that we grew up in. So, man, I don't think he got too much shit at all. I mean, some of the rules lately I've been talking about, we start to hit some triggers with diversity is our strength and multiculturalism, that sort of stuff. That can trigger people a bit more because when you talk about multiculturalism, people think, oh, you're just a white supremacist that wants everyone that isn't white out of this country. It's like, well no. Like,
I know it's wild.
But when realistically, it's like, no, I just want to protect Australian culture.
Yeah.
If someone wants to come here, like, leave all your shit at the door.
Quite literally, if you saw the video the last couple of days, quite literally, leave it. Yeah.
And like, leave that at the door, leave your baggage at the door, and come here and embrace our culture.
Yeah.
And when you talk about multiculturalism, because no one knows what multicultural actually means. It just means that you think you're like a race of white, black, brown people. No, it's like multiculturalism is embracing other people's culture.
Yeah.
So to me, that's bullshit because this is Australia. Like we live in Australia. Australia is for Australian people.
Yeah.
And it's for Australian culture. Now, if you want to bring another culture in here, that's not going to mix. It doesn't mix well.
How do you define Australian culture? Like just at a macro. What's some basics Australian culture to you? Do you think Christian values versus right now we've got a lot of Islamic values coming in. You walk through Western Sydney, I was there not long ago. You walk through Sydney and it's like, man, it can feel like you're in a different country.
Yeah, different planet.
Absolutely. It's not what it was. And that's changed over just the last 5 years and 10 years. What do you kind of look at that at all or just overall how people treat each other?
Nah, look, like Australian culture, I like to think of it as like as I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s.
Right.
Stuff went to shit in like 08 when Kevin Rudd allowed foreign students to buy housing that sent houses 4 times earning to now 15 times
13,
earning.
15, that's right, yeah.
But Australia culture is to me is just, you know, like loving the sunburnt country that you grew up in.
Yep.
Not disrespecting Australian culture, not wanting other cultures in here, like a Pakistan-born immigrant that is now a senator saying, you white people.
Yeah,
it's like, well, no, this country is predominantly white. Racism against white people is now a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
Because if you define racism, it doesn't say you can't be racist to white people. So to me, Australian culture is just loving your country, having a beer with your neighbour,
Yeah.
and, working your 9 to 5, but being able to afford a home and that dream of owning your own home is a real possibility for the younger generation, which isn't happening now. So to me, that Australian culture is eroding quickly because we're importing too many people, and now it's all about money and debt and servicing that debt. But yeah, the Australian culture that I want, or the Australia that I want, is that late 90s to early 2000s, and that's not much to ask for.
No.
Like, I just want to go back there.
Creek in the backyard.
Like
Devon sandwich.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I think Devon. That's in South Australia we call it Fritz.
Right. You would have had it. If
Yeah.
you just described your upbringing was very similar to mine. I'm like, he would have been eating the same sandwiches, tomato sauce. I get it.
What about you? So where did you grow up?
I grew up Central Coast.
Yeah.
So hour and a half north of Sydney.
Yeah.
Very similar. Great parents. I got 3 sisters, two older, one younger. Didn't grow up with any, say, like faith background in the house. Where we grew up was very simple, kind of not country town, but it was very simple. But it was starting to make that turn. I remember growing up where both our parents always had to work. It wasn't like our grandparents where just the dad
Only
could
one.
work, right, and mum could raise the kids.
And why is that?
Economy. Economy is the biggest, and that's why I believe we can get into it probably on another time. But it's like that's why I believe the agendas, all those things break down the family unit. They break it down whether they think it's intentional or not. If you were trying to weigh things up in a court of law of circumstantial evidence, everything they do, from economy, mum and dad have to work, from the weather that goes on, for all those things that people touch on, you can't actually sustain a healthy nuclear family.
Can we dive into this?
Let's do it.
Because let's lay it out in steps, right? Because I think this is all set up. And I think it's all set up to flood Western nations with mass immigration to start this like one world government or something like that.
Of course.
I might not be that far into it, but who knows? And, right, it starts with debt. Let's get heaps of people in debt. Coronavirus comes around. The world prints half its money, floods the market with all this money, and then we go, okay, what do we do now? Well, we need to flood the Western
when
world.
they printed the money, what did they do with it?
Oh, they just hand it out to people.
Yeah, which does nothing.
Does nothing. What they should have done is printed money, buy back resources, buy back the energy sector.
Or build things with it.
Or
create value.
Yeah, or build
Yeah.
things with it. They just gave a whole bunch of money to people sitting at home doing nothing.
Yeah.
And then, well, I reckon back in about 2014, this self-hatred of the country started.
Yeah.
The land you're on is stolen. It's not yours anyway. And this is what we're teaching kids in schools. On top of that, we started to attack masculinity. We started to prop up toxic femininity, which is a very real thing, and it is 10 times worse than masculinity.
Yeah.
Right? You look at like, I don't know, I'm not going to name them, but all these people spreading all this toxic bullshit in society these days, which is doing nothing but putting our youth onto a path of being trans.
Yeah.
They're giving them puberty blockers. They're giving them hormones that practically destroys them for life. And then they get older in like when they reach 25, right? And they're like, oh shit, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this.
Yeah.
I was having a discussion with my mum the other day. My mum was like, yeah, I was a tomboy growing up because I had 3 older brothers. I used to hang out with them. If she was in today's society, they would be like, oh, maybe you're a boy. She comes from she came from a very low socioeconomic background. Her mum came over either right after World War II or right before it was after World War II because her house actually got bombed by the Germans. So she had to flee, come to Australia.
Side note, my grandfather fought for Germany. That's another story.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, sorry about that. But my other grandfather, see that hat right there? I don't know if the camera will see that, but that hat, that was my other grandfather's brother. He was a fighter pilot or whatever.
That's an Air Force hat.
Yeah, whatever they had back then. He was shot down over Norway.
Oh, was he really?
So that's that cap.
Jeez,
that was
that's
the
a
two
cool
sides.
story.
So one was fighting for the what do you call the UK, the British, and then the other one was for Germany. Quite interesting. Keep going.
These days, if you start to look into World War II a lot, like,
Yeah.
whew,
Yeah.
who fought on what side?
100%. I go back to the, it's going to be definitely a different podcast. I've got, for those watching, we're going to do a podcast soon. I haven't asked Sam yet, but I've got a bit of a plan. I want to sit down and do a round table with yourself, Chocky, Joel, Jamal, and maybe bring someone else in, do a round table. That's a topic that we'll talk about in that round table. Where you're going. So your mum came over from where?
So no, my mum was born in Australia, but my nana came over, from the UK.
Right.
But yeah, look, what I was sort of getting back to was my mum would have been, called a tomboy, and then they would have tried to get her on hormones and puberty blockers. Yeah. It's like, this is this weird world we're living in. And then you look at the industry behind transitioning kids, there's a lot of money in it.
Big money.
Like pharma, big pharma. Well, if they hook a kid on hormones for 10 years, that's millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So, they printed a whole bunch of money. They demasculinized our male. Yeah. They pushed femininity. They have pushed a trans ideology onto us that destroys younger generation. They told our younger generation that the land they're on is stolen and it's not theirs anyway. And so when we get flooded with half the planet, it's like, well, I mean, the land's not ours anyway.
Yeah.
Does this look all coordinated to you?
Yeah, 100%.
And then you sit there and you sort of go, well, now our kids are being priced out of the housing market. No one can afford a home. I don't know about you, but I remember going to the grocery store in 2020, paying half of what I pay now.
Yeah.
Petrol, all-time high. Rent, all-time high. Any bit of living standard that we once had, gone. So, to me, an oppressed, an indebted, and a cost of living crisis is pushing people into a yes population because they have nothing left. We can't push back now because what if they take something else away from us? And to me, this all seems way too coordinated to all happen at the exact same time. And let's talk about masculinity. When you start to take away masculinity out of a population, just like you are making a whole bunch of younger men demasculine, and they are easier to control.
Yeah, of course.
To me, all this stuff is pushed back. And then you have Anthony Albanese and Peter Malinauskas come out and say, toxic masculinity is a bad thing. Like, they are beta males. They are weak beta males. I've said this a whole bunch of times.
Of course.
We have these people running our country that, can't even bench press the bar.
Yeah. Go back and look at all the empires and civilizations that have fallen over hundreds of thousands of years, right? Right before all of them fell, most of the time, like a very high percentage.
I know where you're going with this.
The men started dressing as women.
Yep. They all got weird. They just got weirdly developed in this transgenderism world.
Yeah,
it happened
perversion went through the roof. Homosexuality went through the roof, and men started dressing as women, and it was the fall of most of the empires.
And they started printing a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
The Roman Empire did it, the Spanish Empire, the English Empire, and the US Empire. They printed, since COVID, 70% of their US dollar in circulation. And they started the Fed in 1913, 1 year before World War I. Yeah. And then what happened after World War I? Most of the wealth transferred from Europe to America. So that's one thing to think about. But they printed all the money in circulation from 1914 to 2020. And then they printed 70% of the US dollar since what was printed back in 1914 in 4 years.
Yeah.
Everyone wonders why we are where we are today. I mean, take a look at the money printing that's going on. Look at the debt. This is what I always tell everyone, the debt. And like when we talk about debt.
Have you started diving into banks yet?
Yeah, quite a bit. But again, that's one of them scary topics.
Trying to be careful.
Yeah, very careful. But like if you look at, let's just take home loans, for example. There's certain things that I can't do that I would love to do because I've got a powerful home loan.
Yeah.
Same as you, same as everyone, right? And that's a small sense of control. Not a huge sense of control, but a small sense of control.
Yeah.
Do you think governments are any different to massively being in debt? Because the indebted government is a controlled government.
Absolutely.
Who do they answer to?
Yeah.
Who buys our debt? BlackRock, China, Vanguard, State Street.
Yeah.
All these people buying our debt. You know, like, do we have to say to them, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And you know, there's a lot of debt is good people, or debt's a good thing, guys out there.
Yeah.
But like when our taxes, 6 to 7% of your income tax and our income tax goes straight to the Bank of China and BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street, literally goes straight to them, then you think to yourself, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
How did our government allow this? Because I don't need an economic degree to know that it is bullshit is what's going on is my money is going to paying off our debt.
Yeah.
And the larger that debt comes, it seems the more our government becomes controlled. So if they need to answer to something like mass immigration, do it a drop of a hat.
Of course.
If they need to answer something like
DEI policies,
the green energy sector, all this stuff. And then like who's coordinated and connected with all this stuff behind the scenes. You know, and then you got your WEF, your UN, the WHO, and then like who's in bed with the WHO, the WEF, the UN. It's all BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And then like who's behind that?
That's the video you don't want to make.
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
So you go through your teenage years, you decided to join the military. What age did you join the army at? And why? Why did you join? I know why I joined.
Why did you
Navy.
join? Let's start first.
Well, I joined because we didn't want to finish school. And our parents, I joined with 5 mates. So 5 of us all said, listen, we're just going to go to the Navy. We went to Kincumber High School. We'd seen it modelled by a couple of older guys. They went to the Navy. They went and got their mechanics trade in the Navy. And they seemed to be buying an investment property, and we had nothing else going on. So we said, we're going to join the Navy. And we're in year 10. Mum and Dad said, basically all of our parents said, you're not leaving school, you're finishing school. Year 12 comes around, we go and do our interviews, we're off in the May, we're going to the Navy. So we all joined because we had it wasn't like a patriotic thing. We just thought this is our only option. I don't want to go be a plumber, so we're going to join the Navy. And, even back then I had it all planned out. This is some stuff I share with when I do some leadership stuff with men. I had my whole life planned out from when I was 18. Got to 30, didn't do any of it. Right? I had this investment property at 21, get the next one 23, next one 28. Got to 30, I was like, haven't bought any. Spent a lot of time drinking in different ports of Asia. Haven't done any of the stuff I do. And so we ended up just joining. And then by the time I was 24, it is a bit of a story why I got out, but this is touching. I don't know what it was like for you guys, but they wanted me to actually change over and become an officer before I got out. Not because I was a great sailor or any of that. I was actually quite rebellious, have a problem with authority, push back on things, probably similar to you, I don't know. I imagine you got reprimanded quite a few times in the army, but I just saw stuff and was like, no, this is rubbish. And I got to a point where I was sick of going offshore to places and seeing married blokes take off their wedding ring to go. And I'm just like, there's nothing for me to look up to here. So that was my thing when I got out. I joined because I was like, had nothing else to do. But I got out because I wasn't impressed. And I was like, man, I'm not impressed with our forces. I'm not impressed with the way we run things. It feels a bit weird.
You can get sucked into that life. A lot of people can get sucked into that life.
You stay there forever.
I've seen the exact thing that you're talking about time and time again.
Yeah. So how long you joined at what age?
18.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was a crazy football player. Loved playing footy. Everything was about footy growing up in cricket and my sports. But I had a cousin. His name was Scott Palmer. I'll talk about him in a bit. But he was in 2 Commando, so ex-Special Forces. So in the Australian military, you have your SAS and your 2 Commando. So both Tier 1 Special Forces, known around the world as Tier 1 Special Forces. Really, really good. They punch well above their weight.
Really well respected.
Yeah.
They are, yep.
And I'm actually catching up with 2 of my mates that I went through the training with after this. And one of them went on to 2 Commando. The other was a Green Beret over in the UK.
One of them a dog trainer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's And so my cousin, he was in 2 Commando, done Iraq, Afghanistan 3 or 4 times, and Timor twice. And me and him we just got a bit of a bond. He was probably like me when I was growing up, really good rugby player. He grew up in Darwin.
Right.
And he probably seen a little bit of himself in me, and the whole family says that because we practically look sort of identical. And he was he was a really massive role model figure for me. I used to go visit him in Sydney. He'd sort of pay for my flight to go over there when I was a bit older in 11 and year 12. So, mate, when the time come, I had a few mates that got drafted from our footy team, and I went and signed up to the military. I went into a thing called the DRS program, which is the direct recruitment scheme to the commandos, and I was the youngest to ever be taken in. Normally, they take in people that are your average age of 23 to 30, because they want that more mature role in special forces guys. But I was the youngest ever intake, and
at 18.
At 18, yeah.
Wow.
So I had to grow up really quickly. A lot of people around me were that age of, much older, around 25. But Steve being one of them, and the guy with the dog, Canine Steve.
Yep.
But and these guys, there was like an alpha group that formed within that sort of initial 60 that went through. And they sort of took me under their wing, and I got fathered by them for 18 months where we did all the training, got on selection, failed selection, pulled myself off at about day 7 or 8 into it. I just think I was way too young, way too immature, and probably one of the, I don't know, I don't really have too many regrets in my life, but that's one of the ones that I do have regret of pulling myself off that. I think I could have passed it, but life turned out perfectly for me. I wouldn't want to have it any other different way, but you know how you just have them regrets sitting there in yourself. So, but yeah, mate, failed that, went on to 3 area, got my wings there, became a paratrooper, and then deployed to Afghan in 2012. And then 18 months before I went to Afghan, my cousin, Scott Palmer, died over in Afghan in a chopper crash over there. They were heading into a job to hit some Taliban bad guys.
Right.
And the chopper crashed, hit a berm at about 380 k's an hour. And 3 guys died. I think the other guys in the chopper got pretty messed up, but a lot of them are still walking around today. So, but that was obviously a pretty heavy thing because one of my idols sort of looked up. So, it just rocked the whole family. I still stay in contact with his parents to today, and it was a massive reality hit for me as well. Because you sort of think that you're bulletproof. You would know, being in the military, everyone's bulletproof when they're that young. But that was the first real time where I'm like, well, if my hero can go over there and get done, what does the future have for me? I only thought that for a couple of days, and then I was more eager or keen to get over there than I had ever been before. And when it was my time to go over there in 2012, look, I loved my time in the army. I loved my tour. If you think about going overseas to Afghan, imagine a footy trip with 30 of your mates, but you get to do the job that you love every single day. And you're just hanging around the boys all the time. You're going to clash with guys over there all the time, and there are going to be a few fist fights here and there. But generally, it was one of the best experiences of my life. We had a few hairy times over there. I wasn't out in this job, but Kiwi Curtis McGrath, he stepped on IED, lost both his legs. He's now a paracanoer for Australia. Has won a bunch of gold medals. Cool story. When they were loading him onto the chopper, he actually told, with no legs, he actually told the boys that he's gonna win gold in the Paralympics. And 2 years later, he ended up winning gold, and now he's just dominated the sport. So, fantastic Australian as well. Imagine just getting your legs blown off in the desert, 40 degrees, and you still have that attitude
to achieve.
And what that does to the guys on the ground as well.
Oh, amazing.
You turn such a shit situation on the head like that into a better situation. And then the night of the 29th of August came around. A day I'll never forget. We were back at the main base at the time. I've had a lot of guys on my podcast talk about this, and if you want to go into more depth in them, just go through any of the military ones. They're fantastic podcasts from guys that were there that night. Long story short is there was a green on blue, and a green on blue is when we're training up the Afghan army, we're living with them, and one of their soldiers is a infiltrated Taliban member. Right. And at night, long story short, he emptied his AK clip onto the boys sitting there, and I think 5 were shot, 3 got killed, and a few other small injuries there. The talking to my mates that were there, they were obviously the injuries were catastrophic. One of my mates goes into detail about, one of the boys, like he was working on one of the boys and stuff like that, and just couldn't bring him back. I just remember that night from my personal point of view. We're about to go to bed. It was like 10 o'clock at night. We just had a big patrol that day, so we're all pretty screwed. And got out of the shower, came back down, went to go to bed, and we just got a knock on the door. It was our sergeant, said, come out. And he said, look, I don't know too much now. We just got 3 cat alphas, no signs of life, and a couple cat bravos. And when it's like all the injuries are broken down into categories. So cat alpha, no signs of life is like dead people. Cat alpha is like lost your legs. Cat bravo might be a broken arm, and cat Charlie is a scratch or whatever, or a rolled ankle. And he came out and said, yeah, look, we've got 3 cat alphas and no signs of life. And I just remember, and he said it's Bravo Company. And I just remember because I used to be in Bravo Company before the trip, and I went, I have a lot of mates out there. And it's funny the tricks that your mind starts to play on you. For example, I was thinking to myself, it can be this guy, this guy, and this guy, and this guy that's dead. But if it's these 3 guys, I'm going to be devastated. Yeah. And I'm like, I've always felt bad about that, and always felt bad about it. Even when I talk about it now, I've always felt bad because now I know some of the families since then have been in contact with me because I have such a big profile and reached out to me, sent me their books, and they love what I do. But, it's always been a little bit hard to sit with that night with my thoughts. But I don't want to plan it too much because I know that other guys working on the boys trying to keep them alive had it so much worse that night. But it's just one of those things of my experience from that, just what happens with your mind. And then I remember 5 minutes later, they literally said, get your shit ready. We are on 2 minutes notice to move, to go out. And so we started getting that kit on, and then they said, come out. Then they read us the names out. And I remember as they read the names out, like every single name that came out, I was like internally celebrating because it wasn't my mate or it wasn't my mates. And again, like someone
rationalizing your emotions with it. I get it.
Yeah. And I was like, thank God it's not them. But then I look next to me and I have grown men weak at the knees crying because they were best friends of them. So that was just my observation for that night. Those 3 boys that did die over there for 3,000 miles away from home, 40 degrees at night, practically slaughtered like animals. You look back at the sacrifice they made, and I often dive into as well Iraq, Afghanistan, all this sort of shit. I don't want to dive into it too much.
Has any of that fueled and played a role in, a lot of people will just jump on Instagram and say stuff because they just want a profile, right? Some people just want to build a profile. You're obviously someone who has fought for your country, lost mates, lost family members. I'm guessing COVID itself or the pandemic, how you want to say it. I'm guessing a lot of that played a role in you deciding, I'm going to start talking. Is that kind of what's made you the way you are? Like you feel like it's a bit of a calling? Do you call it that? Do you feel like that?
Oh, look, I've always been pretty, I like to call it, I've always been pretty headstrong, slightly arrogant, and if I see a situation I don't agree with, I definitely speak up.
You feel comfortable being in conflict?
Yeah. Do
you feel men are good at doing conflict these days?
Nah. They're all like weak and cowardly. Not all men. Obviously, there's men out there that are still men, but especially the next generation coming through. Oh, no, don't want to say this, don't want to say that. It's like, no, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to stand up for yourself and what you believe in. And whatever name they call you, just know that whenever they call you that name, that is a result because they have lost the argument.
Totally.
So, and this is what you learn with debating. Whenever they start to call your names, you've won the argument.
What is it that you think? We'll just jump into a bit of stuff about men because I would say your audience is similar to mine in the demographic who watches. What is it with men these days that we're not having a go at them? It's more like we're just not where we need to be. We're so far from where we were. One, I think I just describe it like this. I feel like everyone has a threshold of how far they will go. You know, I have a threshold how far I will go for you before I stop defending you. I now have to defend myself. People who are Christians will look at the ultimate example of that is Jesus went all the way for people. So for you and I, you have a threshold on how far you will go for, say, your best mate before you now have to be like, I've actually got to turn from him and look after my wife and kids or whatever. Self-preservation versus self-sacrifice. I feel like the men these days, that threshold is this far. If the minute you say you can't earn your income, they'll be like, we'll be compliant.
Yeah.
That's the difference. We had men who...
So why do you think that's happened?
Well, I just compare it to, say, remember we talked about the people in the war before. My grandfather lied about his age to go to war. He was, I think, under 16 and lied to go and fight. When you have people these days lying to work cover to not go earn, just to sit at home. And I think we've just become addicted to comfort. We're addicted to comfort. We're ruled by fear. And fear is what they use to control everything. It's always, we'll take this away. That's what COVID was.
Yeah.
It was just a sham. I don't know how you, I would almost guarantee how you came through it, but from the very start, I mean, and we don't have to dive into it, but I'm guessing in the military, same as me, they lined you up for days and you took shots, right? That was part of the training. So I've had everything under the sun when it comes to getting, say, vaccinations. When it came to, I'll be careful so we don't get cut from YouTube through this discussion, but when it came to when that happened, it was just purely because of the way it was being, the language to us.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even thinking about politics at this time. I was more absorbed with what was happening in America. I started watching the American elections and stuff when Obama came through. But I wasn't thinking, I just remember going, this is weird. And because of that, I'm not going to do it. Now, I had all sorts of stuff through. I have a business with 40 to 50 employees. They were telling me that, you know, I won't be able to go to location, which could be like, man, well, you might lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I was like, I'm not telling any of my guys to do it. There's no way. How can you look in the mirror or tell your kids to stand up for truth if you bow the minute someone attacks your finances?
Were you willing to see your business go under?
Absolutely.
Means you got morals.
Yeah, I still am now. I had the conversation with my daughter when Charlie Kirk was shot. I don't know if you've had this conversation yet with your wife. I just think in this lane, and I'm new at it, and but I can see the trajectory of it and what I want to do, and I'm doing this forever. Eventually you get to a point where you're, like you are now, getting attacked and stuff like that. And I said to my 13-year-old daughter, you know, do you know, she saw it happen. I was up the moment it happened. I was watching Charlie. She knew who Charlie Kirk was. Do you know why he was shot? She got all that. I said, you realize that what I'm doing is not like a nice little podcast where you're just talking about people and sharing stories with the boys. I said, the stuff that we're talking about it gets people annoyed. And if you push on enough buttons, eventually you'll become the target. And I asked her, do you want your dad to just live a life and not say the truth, but I could live a lot longer potentially, right? Worst case scenario, I could live a lot longer and we can make money and do our things and a few holidays, or do you want to know that I always stood up for truth and I could die? I said it's a far stretch, right? I'm saying if you get to that level.
What did she say?
She said, I want you to tell the truth. Because we have that eternal perspective. She's been raised a Christian because that's how we are now, and so she understands. I literally went down there with a 13-year-old and it was beautiful. We had a little tea together. I said, I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just telling you I'm all in on this. All in. And, you know, I've got my best mate. We have a little deal. If he dies, I've got to give his family $2,500 a week forever until they don't need it. If I die, we have our own insurance policy with each other.
Yeah.
And it's such a comforting thing. He's the only person I know who we have that because I trust he'll do it. We're in business together. We hold short accounts where our finances are so entwined. It's good having that, but I think most men these days, they're so self-absorbed with the investment property. They're self-absorbed with what they need to get, and they compare themselves online to other people.
Yeah, this materialistic world we've been driven down into us.
And it's just driven by fear. That's where I think we're at. How do we get back to how we were? It's that saying about hard men make good times and good times make weak men and weak men make bad times, and bad times make strong men again. And we're just in that time now where it's like there's a few voices coming through, like yourself and obviously Chocky. We've got him here tomorrow, which is going to be great. Joel Jamal doing his thing. People all over the place. And then you've got the ultimate example, Charlie Kirk just towing that same line till eventually like, hey, we don't want it. And this is the left. This is very real. The right doesn't do this. This is the left saying, we don't want to hear what you're saying, so we're going to kill your voice. In Australia, the risk of getting shot is far less because there's not guns floating around every corner. There is illegally, but not in every corner. But they just do it through legislation. Safe at Work Act. They do it through not having a Freedom of Religion Act. So we're not protected to preach on the street at certain times. So Australia, they just do it through a slow tightening. One government comes through, they create a policy. The next government comes through, they tighten it up. You think there's two parties, it's the one party. As Malcolm Roberts says, it's two cheeks of the same arsehole, which I agree. How do you feel about the state of men? Do you align with that or?
Well, just to quickly go back, like if anyone thinks that voting for either Labor or Liberal is going to get us out of this, it's definitely not. Because if you, let's just say all these laws that are bringing in each and every single time, Liberal won't want to push back on it because they're against government. But when they do get in government, do they redact any of these laws?
Never.
So it doesn't matter.
No.
Like if there is a government that is willing to come in and redact these laws, yeah, look, I might vote for them. Because so many people would say to me, oh, who are you voting for? Well, I don't know yet. Like I need to stand back and watch this because, look, One Nation, they might be the option, but still they voted the other day for the laws to bring into place. I can't remember what it was, but it was like more surveillance on social media platforms or something like that. And they voted, for that. And I was like, well, why are you voting for that?
Yeah.
I think the only ones that pushed back were Senator Babbitt and a couple others. But, man, back into the push of men, like the Australian family is being destroyed. Toxic masculinity is being used to attack just normal men wanting to be normal.
Yeah.
And toxic femininity is being pushed onto society to demasculinize our male population because a population with less masculine males is easier to control.
Yep.
And then you flood onto stuff like that, speech laws, hate laws, and then the debt, make housing unaffordable, bring in 5% loans. So someone has to now, use $50,000 to get $1 million loan. It's like, what are they going to be paying a week? And it's just how they do it. So
how do we encourage, young men? It's one thing to always just sit here on podcasts and with our reels and stuff, but you would obviously have a desire, right? To the way it changes, if more men start to pick up what we're putting down.
And it's not just like men in this topic as well. For females listening to this, I want to say as well, it's okay to be attracted to a masculine man.
Yeah, it is
right?
okay.
It is absolutely fine to want your male to provide for your family.
Yeah.
And it is okay that you, if you want to, you sit at home and you become a stay-at-home mum of a family of 4 and you let your husband provide for you. That is completely fine. There is nothing against traditionalism. Postmodernism is destroying our nation.
Yeah.
So to females out there as well, to wanting to be attached to a masculine man, don't turn away from that. And also on the same side of things, if you take out masculinity and if you take that, it throws the balance out of everything. Throws the balance out of everything because young females are attracted to masculine males, right? If we are telling our younger generation that their masculinity is toxic and all these young females are looking and going, well, all the men now are
gay,
demasculinized gay people. It's like it throws a balance out of everything.
Yeah.
Females then become pissed off because they can't find any good young men. They then look for older men who have just been caught up in the system and are just using them. Then they get older and they end up turning into male hating
the hate men,
full 40-year-olds that have
never
full
actually
feminists.
been with a real man
because our government, our schooling system has come down and been like, this toxic masculinity is a huge problem. People like Andrew Tate are dangerous, and people like top feminists around the world, they're okay. Like Bonnie Blue, we won't talk up about what she does. We won't talk up against her, getting rammed by 1,000 dudes in a day. Anthony Albanese won't say anything bad about that. But straight away when someone, puts out a bit of masculinity, let's attack that.
Yeah.
All right. Because one of the, and look, like onto solutions.
Yeah.
For young men, run lots, lift lots of weight. Because straight away when you physically get yourself into a good shape, you are going to start sleeping better. You are going to start seeing better. You are going to start thinking clearer. Drink plenty of drink plenty of water, right? Drink black coffee, eat a lot of red meat. Stay away from mass amounts of carbs. Stay away from drugs. Stay away from bad food, and read lots. Read lots and get good at debating. I'm telling you right now, if there is a young male that is physically fit, is on top of his health, and has a sharp mind who can debate, you will conquer the world. Yeah. One thing I have found out in this game is that, you can talk online a lot, but one of the real obstacles I have coming up forward is debating people. Now, I've went out and got debate training because, like I said, a fit male with a very steadfast mind who eats plenty of meat, runs lots, and has a sharp mind and can debate, it's a dangerous combination. Like what's that thing that Jordan Peterson says? You want to be a monster.
Yeah.
Right? But you need to be able to tame that monster.
Capable of violence, control your emotions.
Now, I don't think Jordan Peterson is capable of violence, but we all know what he's saying there. And, it's okay. If you want to settle down at the age of 22, do that. If you found the woman of your dreams, like I did at the age of 20, asked her to marry me at the age of 22, and I'm still with her today, do that.
Amazing.
Don't turn away from that. Yeah. Don't turn away from that bind of love because society has told you, oh no, let's do this or let's do that or let's sleep with girls. If you want to do that. But at the end of the day, if you're attracted to someone and you love them, don't turn away from that. And my last point as well, stop watching porn.
Yeah.
Porn's the devil's playground. If you watch too much porn, your dopamine in your brain will get it'll underdevelop your sensation of wanting to go further.
Yeah.
So you'll want to push further. Then you'll start looking into weird ideologies like trans. You'll start looking into weird ideologies like becoming a fucking pedophile. Because if you watch too much porn, one of my mates has a friend that works for New South Wales Police and the crime detective thing. And he said, he goes, the one thing that pedos all have in common, they're all porn addicts. They'll watch heaps of porn. And there's studies and statistics out there that show if you watch too much porn, your brain needs that dopamine hit more and more every time. It's like a drug addict.
Yeah.
Right? Like every single time you hit that heroin, you need more of that shot and you'll never get the first hit. And you want to go to more extremes. So you start looking into transgenderism. You start to look into pedophilic stuff with kids. And when you start to get down that avenue, you've been captured by the devil's playground, which is porn.
And there's no coming back for it.
Weakens men. It weakens men. Under 16 ban, they ban everything, don't they?
Except porn.
That tells you everything you need to know about this scumbag government.
Yeah, it does. Those guys, like Ted Bundy started, Ted Bundy, the mass murderer, right? He started by, I think his parents were even pastors, maybe, at least in church, maybe a Baptist church upbringing. He started by seeing back then a dirty magazine he saw in a trash can. That's how it started.
Yeah.
And the growth of developing perversion and lust led to videos, led to whatever he could get his hands on back then, and eventually got to a point where he's like, I need to go out and find someone to do this to. Right?
I need to make the reality real.
And make it more real. Make it exactly right. And people who watch pornography, for sure, you would have saw it, right, with the guys in the military. It was accepted back then. No one thought about this stuff much.
They didn't.
It was fully accepted. And I was having this conversation with a good mate not long ago, and he had told me, I can't remember if I spoke about this on a podcast or not, but he said it came up in conversation, and I talked about, I was on the video I did, those who haven't watched it, The War on Men, and I talk about the dangers of pornography. It's also referenced in The War on Family because of what it does to the husband and the dad who's watching that. But I just talk about the slow and steady decline of you as a man by watching porn. And he'd said to me, he said, I just recently stopped watching it. And he's 39 as well, and new wife and stuff. And I said, what do you mean? Like, he's like, yeah. But he was so blasé. He goes, I didn't realise it was a thing, like a bad thing. It was actually his wife had said to him, it had come up in conversation. And maybe, I can't remember the story, but maybe he'd said, she said, you don't watch porn. You've never watched porn. He's like, I still watch porn. And they're married. And she's like, what do you mean? And he was like, is that not okay? If you're not around or whatever, I've got needs. And she's like, and she went down the route of, you're contributing to trafficking, child abuse, all this sort of stuff. And he'd never thought about it. But I agree that under 16 age ban, going back to that, exactly the point when I spoke to a few different people about it and senators, that all they're doing is controlling you elsewhere. But the one thing we should be making it hard for kids to access is it's still open silo for them. When did you leave the army?
6 months after I got back from my tour to Afghan. Mate, you know, if you do one of them tours as a grunt like I did, you spend time out at those patrol bases, you get sort of used to being in that life of being over in Afghanistan, and then you come back and your CO will tell you, hey, we're going out bush for the next 6 months out of the next 9 months. And you're like, nah, like, you know, I actually thought it was a ploy by our unit to get a lot of us out because it's just known, mate, when you come back from Afghanistan, you get a lot of pissed off soldiers that have pretty bad PTSD and stuff like that. So they try and force you back into work. A lot of discharges happen then. And when you're out, you're not their problem. So I always think that is like a conspiracy theory a tactic that the military use to try and get people out of the military after service overseas in Afghan, purely because they just don't want to deal with you.
How long have you been out for now?
Mate, yeah, got out in 2014. So
okay.
I was out 11 years.
I was out in 2011.
Yep.
Yeah, 2011. And so what did you dabble in, or what were you doing from there until now? What filled the last decade?
So I pretty much came back, and the Adelaide Oval redevelopment was happening in Adelaide. So I came back to Adelaide. I actually had to get because I busted my shoulder over in Afghan, so I had to have surgery before I got out of the military. So I got surgery, then discharged, shoulder reconstruction. And so about a few months after that, I started working at redevelopment at Adelaide Oval. And if you know Adelaide, the Adelaide Oval is iconic. Yeah. You know, it's had the greatest cricket matches in the world. Yep. Now it hosts, AFL games, Adelaide Crows and Port Adelaide. It's probably one of the best arenas in the world that I think you can watch cricket at. And so I worked in the redevelopment there for a few years when they built it all back up. And then after that, I started working in mining in the safety industry. Okay. And then my last job before I sort of started all this was I started working at the shipyard in Adelaide, and it was to build the subs and the Navy defence ships. And then COVID hit. And yeah, my missus' business then was picking up, digital online business. So I actually stopped working, started to help her with that. And it was lucky because I would have refused the jab, so I would have got sacked anyway. And yeah, about 18 months ago I started this, so now we're actually closing down my wife's business and starting to, sort of run this full time. How this looks and how it works, I don't. Mate,
you're learning as you go, right?
Each and every month is different. Every week is different. What I say and my views on stuff, the deeper I go, is becoming vastly different than what I thought 3 months ago.
I want to ask you actually on something like that. What's something you've changed your mind on in the last, let's say, 10 years?
Liberals are the good guys.
Okay.
And not. We are in this mess because of the Liberals.
Yeah.
Think about the debt printing that they did. Mass immigration. And then let's say mass immigration is more than 10,000 people a year. Right? So, if we go back a decade ago, immigration was roughly around 100 to 200,000. Like that might be okay for a population of 50, 60, 70 million. But when we're at 20 million, like you're flooding in the country every single year, like 1% of the population or something like that.
Yeah.
Point to note, we have the highest immigration per capita in the world.
Absolutely.
The known world.
Yeah.
So we sit at 1.9. The UK sits at 1.1. Canada sits at 1.2. The US is starting to go up vertical now, 0.3. So if you think about it, like we are the highest legal immigration per capita in the world. But I mean, yeah, it's.
What do you see? What do you see for yourself? I know you can't look too far ahead, but I listened to your conversation with Gerard Rennick. By the way, amazing podcast. That was actually really good.
I felt a bit out of my depth with him.
He is incredibly sharp, though.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff I knew about it,
and he delivers information fast.
He's very, very good.
I actually watched it twice because, especially the biggest thing I learned about it was around the printing of money and how there can be a positive spin to that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. You sit down with someone like Gerard, and he's a very, very
good accountant.
Yep.
And I loved how he referenced the fact that well, I want people to go back and watch it. It's actually really good, not just from a political point of view, but even if you don't care about politics, you need to understand why things work. And it was actually a really good podcast. But just on that, the printing of money, right? And we've always been taught, yeah, printing money is bad, causes inflation, and that is true. But the idea of printing money, I'll give it in very layman's terms. Basically, he talked about if you print money, what was he calling it? Issuing bonds, basically to build something that would create value or buying back infrastructure, right? So rather than just giving money to someone, and they call it stimulating the economy.
NDIS.
Where it can just be milked and...
Something like that, you know? Like,
yeah, but go and build a building or buy back an energy grid or do something that creates value or build blocks of units that people can live in, like do something that creates value. It was a really good podcast for that. He was incredible. I can't remember where I was going with him, but I just remember that podcast was good. Go back and watch it for people. He mentioned in there, you know, he basically said you got to back a party. You raised the question. People asked me my opinion, and you said, I don't know if I want to get involved. And he said, you got to back a party. Do you think much about that now? Coming up to the next election is actually in Adelaide. Yeah, Adelaide's got an election coming up. Do you think much about being the activist type person or the commentator on politics, or do you just want to keep poking holes and creating exposure so other people can read between the lines? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, coming up and backing someone in South Australia, I probably will before that, when that time happens. It's like February, March. The Liberal Party, like they're in a slide downwards that would seem practically get defeated by 75%. They might get 25% of seats or something, and those seats will only be in Liberal safe seats. Mate, the fact is as well with backing, so I don't like Peter Malinowskis. He loves to attack masculinity.
Yeah.
I think he is more right-leaning in a left-leaning party. I did hear him a while ago talk about nuclear energy because South Australia has some of the best uranium resources in the world. But you can't talk up against nuclear energy because, Chris Bowen, he's obviously controlled somehow behind the scenes by someone like Mike Cannon-Brookes and Climate 200.
Have you asked Chris to come on your podcast?
Yes. Yeah. Nah. So it's too exposing for anyone like Chris, Anthony Albanese. I sit down to piss Jim Chalmers, people like that. It's too exposing for them because where are they at the moment? They are killing it in the polls. Imagine if they come on my podcast, I run rings around them, make them look silly. It's a lose-lose for them.
Yeah.
They're never ever gonna beat me in a debate. That's one thing for sure, because I've poked holes in their whole system already.
Yeah.
And that's a system also that has been developed by the Liberal Party.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've poked holes in this. It's just too it's too risky for that. And to be honest, like ever since I called out AJAC, which is a lobbying group, Australia Israel Jewish Association Committee, and no one from the Liberal Party would talk to me. So, like who controls the Liberal Party?
Yeah.
So,
so do you believe, let's just sit up for a second. Do you feel like once that came out, blanket statement, hey, no airtime for Sam Bamford?
Potentially, yeah. I have had no contact from the Liberal Party since that.
And you were having a little bit before that?
Yep. Yeah, I was talking to people from that. And like I didn't attack Jewish people. I've got nothing against the Jewish community.
You attacked the system. I
attacked lobbying.
Yeah.
Lobbying.
Which needs to stop.
Which is legalised corruption in the government.
Yeah.
It is 100% legalised corruption. You know how this is how I would fix Australia tomorrow. One, you tie our debt to politicians' pay. So no politician gets paid unless we print a profit for that month and we pay off our debt, not just interest, right? And if that happened, watch the government make cuts overnight. Goodbye woke DEI departments. Goodbye cultural diversity.
Your bureaucracy would go at that.
Yep, it would shrink, and everything would start to work itself out overnight, right? Because we wouldn't be paying for all this, and we would start to use that natural resource sector again, and we would probably start to tax that natural resource.
Which, by the way, just doing that alone could fix our nation's economy.
100%.
Do you watch much of pundits politics?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's a lot of good stuff.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
My only criticism, and I've spoken to him before, very nice guy.
Yeah.
My only criticism with him is, yes, like, do what I do. Everyone gets it.
Yeah.
Everyone gets it. I don't care who you are, what party you're at.
Yeah.
If I see corruption, I call it out. Because he has never called out the green energy sector, which I know for a fact that Chris Bowen has billions of dollars in subsidies that he funnels through to Julia Gillard in a HMC capital firm, which buys green energy sector infrastructure. And then a week later, after getting the contract from Chris Bowen, she ends up flipping it for a $50 million profit.
Yeah, we had Chris Bowen on. It was pretty softball. I listened to it. It was pretty soft. I like his podcast, but it was pretty softball. But he does a lot of great work.
He does.
Yeah, keep going with your.
He does.
If you were PM or if you were in the role, a couple of things.
Yeah. So the two things to fix this country is to tie the books to politicians.
Profit share. We're going to make them a real estate commission only.
So no politicians gets paid unless we make a profit and we pay off our debt and the interest. Because right now we're just selling off our kids' future. The next thing, ban lobbying, foreign and domestic. And if you do lobby or if you get caught lobbying to the government or receive the lobbying info as a politician, you sit a decade in jail. I'm not joking about that. That is my two things that I would issue tomorrow if I was in power for a day. Watch the country fix itself overnight because our debt would start to go down. That means cost of government would go down. That means our cost of living would go down and correct itself. And then if you ban lobbying, what do politicians do now if they don't have someone controlling them like a puppet? Oh, they go to an Australia first attitude.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Because right now they are Australia last, foreign influence first, anyone with big pockets, billionaires first, foreign governments first.
For anyone watching who doesn't know what you mean by lobbying, give them a very quick scenario, like explain lobbying to someone.
So, so a big business, let's say, I don't want to pick on the oil and gas sector.
Let's say maybe a car manufacturer.
Let's go Julia Gillard's HMC Green or whatever it is, green investment firm. Okay. She pays $2,500 for someone to get a pass into Parliament. That person, lobbyist, is lobbying on behalf of that green energy sector, now has a pass. They can walk straight into Government House, go straight into Chris Bowen's office and have a conversation with him behind closed doors, not recorded. That person can then get up, walk into the bureaucrats who secretly run the country and have the exact same conversation with them. Do you not think that there is some backroom deals? Anthony Albanese bought a $4.3 million house next to the ocean, right? Which Chris Bowen will tell us sea levels are rising.
It's where I grew up.
And he buys right next to the ocean, $4.3 million. You sort of sit there and think to yourself, what's going on behind closed doors here?
Yeah.
And every single time this stuff happens, Australia comes last. The Australian people come last. These lobbyists and their big business and their foreign influence, that all comes first. This is what pisses me off about the political class in Australia. For far too long, Australians have let this happen, and we've unknowingly just been forced into this situation because what happened when we were younger, our parents could afford a home.
Yeah,
my brother bought his first house at 4 times earnings. It was $220,000 in the same area we grew up in. He was on a $60,000 job, and I guess our parents and us back then were like, well, there's probably corruption in the government, but at least we can afford houses.
Yeah, life was easier.
Yeah, and like at least I can afford to go on a holiday if I want. At least I can afford to fill up my petrol, which was at 75 cents a litre.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, housing is 16 times per earning. No one can fucking live. Families are choosing between food and rent, and there's government corruption.
Yeah.
It's like we all sort of knew it was there before, but now we can't live. Yeah. Now they're under a microscopic view lens of us looking at them going, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing that? Why'd you make that decision? And personally, like, I don't know, maybe the last election was one of the last elections that we can actually vote our way out of this.
I did a little exercise a couple of times on a few of our earlier shows we used to do. And just for people who didn't think it was at least orchestrated, I kind of wrote down average income, what the average income will look, what's the average rent price, what's the average car repayment, what's the average grocery bill, entertainment, if you drink a couple of beers every week. And I looked at it, and basically the way the numbers stack up right now, you actually cannot live without some government handouts. It has to be. And so if we're in a society where you need to take money from the government to live, so this is always my encouragement to people, hey, you can start a business, go do something. You've got to get out, you've got to break past this threshold of just getting your average income, because it's the only way you're going to be able to survive until we can actually see the political class change. But even just that, like, you got to know that, hey, if you have an average income, mum and dad, maybe you're both school teachers, both working, but if you've got a 2-year-old or 3-year-old who's in preschool, you're paying max fees for them. If they're not vaccinated, you're paying full fees, so now you actually can't afford not to have 2 people working. If you've got a new car, you've got a repayment on that, you've got a Netflix account, and you get to go on a date night once a month if you're lucky, it is totally against you. You actually can't survive without getting, I can't even remember what they call it in Australia now, but you basically, without getting $200 or $300 a fortnight from the government, you depend on that. So what's the first thing you're going to stop doing? Speaking up, telling the truth, stirring the pot. You're not going to start a podcast. That's the biggest threat, right, of having a podcast. And this is something they'll do to you first before they go and kirk you, right? But what they will do is they'll just look into your business. I got to make sure with my business, as you start to get more of a profile, make sure you're paying your debts, paying your ATO. Like, in the simplest form, make sure your BAS is on time. Make sure your books are done properly. Because the first thing they'll do is just take your money. Take your money, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
Alex Jones, right?
They'll just debank you.
Debank you. Yeah, another video.
Yeah.
But they'll take your money, and then when that doesn't work and you'll keep going because you'll have a big enough platform or a Patreon community is like, they can't really take your money. They can try. They obviously did to Nick Fuentes 10 years ago. But once you break through that, taking the money won't just work. Then they'll go, oh, you got a kid, you want to have more kids? That's all right. We'll find a way to put you in jail.
Blackmail.
They'll put you in jail.
Blackmail.
Sooner or later.
Can't tell me that a lot of these people that speak up against the current issues in Australia don't have some form of blackmail on. That's why I'm so careful with my family, what I do, my friends.
Yeah.
Because they won't just try and blackmail me.
That's right.
They will get to a friend of mine.
They'll look for someone to do something.
They will always.
That goes back to my initial thing I said about being compromised, corrupt, or just incompetent, right? How many of these, I've always thought this, I look at movie stars, celebrities, elites, there's this trajectory of someone just pops out of nowhere and they become super famous. I'm like, and I look at politicians in Australia, the best way, and we saw obviously what Epstein is, all that stuff that's happened, the best way to get control over someone is to, say with men, right, honeypot them early, then you got them forever, and then you're going to push through whatever policy you want. How much of that do you reckon, just, obviously you don't have facts, but how much of that do you think, I just feel like a lot of these politicians are owned through being compromised young. Do you think on those lines as well?
99%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're not guessing?
I don't sugarcoat that.
Yeah.
Mate, there's a lot of stuff that I can't prove.
Of course.
But you can't tell me these politicians aren't making decisions for Australia first when I've just explained the lobbying industry to you.
Yeah.
Like they just legalized corruption by letting lobbying occur in government. And then again, you ask these questions, who benefits off Australia being in debt? Who benefits off us continuously printing money and selling that as government bonds, and then China, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, our stupid buy those bonds? And then all of a sudden, an indebted nation is a controlled nation. It happens like all the way down through to society. Like you think Jim Chalmers sits there and he goes, guys, we've just had a quarter of a wage growth where we're up 0.2%. Hey, dipshit, wages are back in 2010 levels with 2025 inflation. Like, you don't think over time, probably since the early 2000s, that there's been mass corruption within our government? And look, I can't prove any of this mass corruption, But if you're just looking at what's happening around Australia,
Yeah, logic, discernment.
it's like 99% of them are somehow they've either done some tour overseas, they've either taken money from someone like lobbying and donors. Like they don't pay people just because they feel like it's the right thing to do. They pay people because when it's time for them to write laws, they write laws in favor of whoever gave them the fucking money.
Yeah.
Or who has ever blackmailed them. And like this is the dangerous thing. I can call out blue-haired freaks.
Yeah.
I can call out trans people. I can call out Islamic extremists. I can call out stuff in Israel. I can call out Palestine. I can call out Afghanistan, China, India. You can call out whoever you want, whatever system you want, green billionaires, whatever. You start calling out politicians, their way of life.
Yeah.
You don't think they're going to do something to try and stop that?
Well, I think you've obviously struck a nerve with people because there's a reason when you started poking the hole at those people, your platform exploded. And this is actually showcasing that a lot of people feel like this. And they would take note of that, your platform, Chocky's platform, even The Voice, right? Remember The Voice vote? That alone, I've spoken to Joel Jamal about this, like his strategy around that. If they listen to him, not that we want Liberals to win, but anyone who's a conservative party or just want to be traditional or common sense, or it's not even right-winged, it's just like, if you just want to be normal, looking at the map of Australia, they overwhelmingly voted for common sense. That should have been your map for how to put together a conservative movement to get the vote. By looking at those places, not going after teal seats, not going to turn them, going after, here's all these towns where they're normal, they're common sense. I think, and you would see it as the frustration of people is like, yeah, we hear what you're saying, Sam. We hear it, but what the freak, we can't do anything. Like we're over it.
Yeah.
The frustration, and normally I think what frustration leads to when people feel like they can't do anything and then at times keep getting tighter and tighter and we still can't do anything and another election goes, it kind of leads to violence.
100% it does. Yeah.
What do you see over the next 20 years?
I have to be extremely careful with what I say here because I'm one of the biggest platforms in Australia that speaks up politically for, I don't even call it left and right, I just call it common sense.
Yeah.
And I know they watch me, I know they talk about me, I know they're very aware of who I am.
Yep.
So the moment I slip up with like inciting violence is the moment this show comes crashing down and they put me in prison. Violence is not the answer. I want to start by saying that.
Yep.
But how far can they push us until your average Aussie just goes, I've had enough? That's all I really want to say on that matter.
I saw.
Do I think that voting is like going to get us out of this mess? From what I've found out, discovered, talked about, I don't know. Like, do I want a revolution, safe revolution that isn't violent, so the system gets recorrected and worked for the Australian people? Yes, of course, that's what needs to happen. But how do we get there? I have no idea. Like, I don't want to give these guys too much airtime, but like, you want to know why the NSN movement is here?
Why?
Because our government has done exactly what we've said that they've done for the last decade. They've attacked young men. They have told them their masculinity is toxic. They have said, if you push back against immigration, you're a white supremacist. And they have priced them out of the housing market. So now you've got a pissed off younger generation that's like, well, I'm just going to go to the far extreme now because they're the only ones talking for me.
Yeah.
Like, me and these guys have openly had beef. We do not get along, but I have empathy for them.
Yeah.
I understand their situation.
Well, we would align with some of their...
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
And I understand their situation. I have empathy for them. And you know why they are gaining support hand over fist?
Yeah.
Because there's no right side conservative party that are standing up for them.
No, there's a vacuum there.
There is. And like, when you look back to the Liberals, they have been infiltrated by the moderates who are a bunch of Green and Teal members.
Yeah.
You know, Susan Lay, Ann Ruston, all these people in ultra safe Liberal seats are Green and Teal members. And they're coordinating the message of net zero, toxic masculinity, all this bullshit. So there is no voting unless we go to, you know, Pauline Hanson. Then you look at her side of politics. A lot of people are thinking, you know, she's the answer, and she might be, but she can't be Prime Minister. She's in the upper house.
Yeah, of course.
So she's going to have to team
That's
up.
how I feel about Senator Antic. He'd make a great Prime Minister, but you have to leave Senate, come back, get voted to the House, be in a party that we want to lead, and then lead it. It'd be amazing. That is half the problem. I want to bring it to a bit of a close, but I want to ask you a question to kind of end it, I suppose. But it's about what you want to be remembered for. I know you're early in you're going to have a long life ahead of you doing this stuff, but do you think much about legacy? How is it that you want to be remembered?
First and foremost, a loving father, loving husband, and someone that stood up for his country when they needed him to, and is willing to die for that.
Sam Bamford, thanks for being here.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks very much.
Hey, if you enjoyed that conversation, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell so you can be notified of future content just like this. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Two Worlds Collide podcast. If you want to support what I'm doing, you can grab some merch or jump on my Patreon program. Both links are in the description. Until next week, take care, guys.